Welcome to the first episode of the Legacy Builders podcast. I'm your host, Kyle McGee, and this podcast is all about unpacking the lives, lessons, and habits of high performers who are building more than just businesses. They're building people, community, families. They're building legacies. Today, I have the pleasure of bringing Trevor McGregor, Coach T, as I call him, on as our interviewee. Trevor's been a real estate investor for over 2 decades now and is also a high-performance master coach with over 40,000 one-to-one coaching sessions under his belt. He has worked with clients from around the world, including Fortune 500 execs, doctors, attorneys, high-level real estate investors, entrepreneurs, and even Olympic athletes. They all come to Trevor for one thing: life-changing transformation, both personally and professionally, so that they can achieve more success, more wealth, and more freedom faster than they ever thought possible. Trevor, my man, welcome.
Wow. Well, thank you for having me here, Kyle. I am blessed and grateful to be on the show with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And Trevor and I have gotten to know each other for about a year now, and we've been working intimately on a one-on-one level, and I can highly attest to his biography is true. He's enhanced my life drastically in the short amount of time that we've worked, and he's been instrumental in helping me develop my mindset and personal growth. So, and a big encourager for this podcast. So it's only fitting that you're the first guest, Trevor.
I am absolutely stoked for you. And I know this is the first of many episodes that are going to rock people's ears. I mean, you really know your stuff. And not only have we been working together, but we've got to meet in person a couple of times, which is always awesome. I love meeting my clients. And I echo it right back to you. You're the real deal. And I'm excited for what this journey is going to be for you.
Yeah, appreciate that. So let's get into it. So want to start going back a little bit. So before you became this coach and with 40,000 one-on-one sessions, working with all these high-level people, what were you doing like in your early career?
Yeah, like most people, grew up middle-class family, went off, studied business in college, went to work in corporate like most people do. You go and you find a corporate job. And that corporate job was an interesting one because it was in hospitality. And I really learned a lot about people. And I was always fascinated with what allowed people to really excel in corporate and what caused people to just kind of toe the line and mail it in every day. And it was around that same time I was working in corporate that I also started to buy real estate. I started to buy little, duplexes and fourplexes and single family homes because I really believed that it was great to have the corporate job, but it was also one of my dreams to become an entrepreneur and a real estate investor. And it was around that time that I started to have a radical level of success buying these properties. And people would come to me and say, Trevor, how are you holding down a corporate job? How are you raising a family? I was married with kids. And how are you doing this real estate thing? And I said, well, buy me a drink and I'll sit down and I'll show you how to do it. And Kyle, that's what I started to do. I started to just unleash my blueprint. It was my son's soccer coach, my other son's baseball coach. And in a short amount of time, they took my advice and they went out there and started to buy their own rental properties. And that's when the coaching bug bit. And that's when I really realized that is my greatest joy, is helping other people to go from where they are to where they truly want to be.
Yeah, that's special. And not many people find something that they're super passionate about, right? And can go all in. And you've had the opportunity to impact thousands of people, right? But tell me a little bit about who's impacted you the most. Who got you started on your personal development journey? Because often what I'm seeing and I'm learning from my own life is that I get motivated by mentors, leaders, other people, right? And then I pass what I learned down to my team or my sphere. Who's impacted you the most?
What a great question. And this is where the story gets really cool, because not only did I start reading all the personal development books, I started listening to CDs. Back in that day, we had CDs, not, our iPhones. And I started going to personal development events. And it was really Tony Robbins' first event called Unleash the Power Within that my wife and I went, and I absolutely was blown away over 4 days. Listening to Tony talking about what successful people do and what successful people do to shift their identity and what successful people do to believe that the best is yet to come. And as we started to apply some of these things and I read more books and listened to more CDs, I'm telling you, that's where it absolutely all started to come together for me. And I started to work with my very own Tony Robbins coach at that time. Now, that's not Tony Robbins, but one of his global coaches. And this guy's name was Dave. And Dave took me under his wing And for year after year, he absolutely poured into everything that you'd want in a coach, a teacher, a facilitator, a mentor. And we became really good friends. And it was around that time that Tony was looking to hire even more coaches for his coaching program. And Dave said, why don't you throw in a resume? And I said, well, Dave, I don't know. I've got the corporate world. I'm busy with the kids because I was coaching Little League sports and all of that. I had my real estate. And he said, no, just throw in a resume. Maybe you can join us part-time. And I said, all right, I'll throw in a resume, not thinking it would go anywhere. And I was shortlisted, Kyle, down from 500 to 250, from 250 to 100, from 100 to just 50 resumes left. And at that point, you got to go do your practicum with Tony and the team. You got to go to all the events. You got to listen to all the CDs. You got to read all of Tony's books. And even then, you have to go through a very stringent practicum to literally get into, what we call the final 10, because Tony was only hiring for 10 coaches. And I'm happy to say that, I made it through all of that. I went and did my practicum in Orlando, Florida. And when the dust settled, not only did I get offered a part-time job, they wanted to hire me full-time. So I left my corporate career and I went to work for the man, the myth, the legend, yes, Mr. Tony Robbins, for over half a decade and became one of his top coaches.
Man, what a story. That's awesome. And I think it's important for the listeners to listen that this isn't some grand vision you had, right? This is something that you experienced, felt called to, and you kept leaning in, right? And kept getting closer, and it developed over time. It was a gradual growth, right, to this opportunity, and you leaned into it. It wasn't like, hey, I'm going to go work with Tony Robbins and, next thing you know, here you are. So it was kind of gradual and you developed it over time.
Yeah, very gradual. And again, the universe has a sly way of opening up doors, sometimes when you least expect it, right? But it was really at Tony Robbins that I got my black belt in coaching. I started to coach people at Fortune 500 companies, started to coach a lot of doctors, attorneys, business owners, franchise owners. But what was really cool was I always got the real estate investors because Tony and the team knew that I was a real estate investor. So they start to plug me into people that were in real estate. And that really became my calling, to really help people close that gap in real estate, no matter what asset class they were in.
I think that this is a perfect segue. And I think Tony Robbins actually probably gets credit for this quote, which really is probably a Jesus quote. However, Tony gets credit for it. So shout out Tony Robbins. But the quote is, the secret to living is giving.
Yes.
Right? How have you seen your world get bigger from giving back?
What a great question, Kyle. And it's absolutely true. The secret to living is giving. And it doesn't mean if you're giving your money, it could be that you're giving your time, you're giving your presence, you're giving your wisdom, you're giving something to someone else that might be a step or two behind you, or maybe they're a step or two in front of you, but they needed to hear what they needed to hear. And so I think that the secret to living is giving. And as a coach, and after doing over 40,000 coaching sessions, and yes, that's an actual statistic. You'll hear my voice is a little bit raspy. I've been paid for my coaching, but I've also done a ton of pro bono coaching, a ton of speaking, a ton of stuff with kids. My wife and I really love travel. And so we travel the world with our 3 kids. And I might not even be in a coaching session, but I'm talking to someone at a resort or an airport or a hotel. And it's fascinating to me where when somebody hears that you're a real estate investor and a high performance coach, they've always got something they want to talk about. So no matter where we go, whether it's a dinner party or something here with the kids, I always find myself wanting to be a great listener first. And then if people are open to it, I'll say, would you like some help with that? And that's, one of the greatest things. And I know you do the same as you go out there in your community and with your wife and your 3 boys. It's very fulfilling and it meets all of my 6 human needs.
Yeah. And something that gets brought up in our coaching conversations a lot is frequencies and the vibration of energy. And I think what's interesting that you've really kind of helped shift my mindset around is the ripple effect of coaching and inspiring people that you may never even know about, right? Like you've taught me something that I in turn teach my team about, right? That they in turn teach their kids or family about. And it could be a principle, it could be a simple mindset shift or a framework of thinking about things. So this ripple effect that you may never know, right? The true impact you have, that's immeasurable, right? And so I think that there's a lot of good to be shared about just giving back and the way it makes you feel. and the impact you leave, for the next generations.
Yeah, let's unpack that just a step further, Kyle, because it's absolutely true. It's like throwing a pebble in a pond. And we all know that when we've thrown a pebble in a pond, we get those concentric circles, right? We don't sit there and count them, but they go out and out further and further. So even though I might be speaking to a business owner, I might be coaching a couple, I might be coaching an entrepreneur or a startup, you never ever know what they're going to carry with them, not only for the rest of their life, but like you say, teach to their spouse, to their kids, to their team members, to people that come into your life. Because as we always say, that people come into your life either for a reason, they come in for a season, or they come in for what we call a lifetime. So when we say reason, season, lifetime, the more you give, the more that comes back to you in avalanches of abundance. And we didn't come for money. I mean, there were some pretty lean years growing up, but ultimately I find that the more that I do give, and this is in the book, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill as well. He says that as long as you commit to giving, those avalanches of abundance that you've been looking for all those lean years start to find you. And that's exactly what's happened. And so now, not only do we continue to do the real estate, we continue to do coaching. We have a publishing company. We have a school, World Freedom Schooling movement that we're doing. And my wife and I and the kids love to travel. And I'm coming to you today from down under. I'm in Australia today. Normally, I'm in Canada. I'm in the US. We're spending some time in Europe this summer. So it doesn't matter who you are or where you are. There's always another level to get to. But the secret to it is you got to give more than you're willing to receive.
Yeah, I love that. And so I think that impacts a lot. And it also brings me to the next point. So it's always entertaining. We talk every 2 weeks, call it, and you might be in the Maldives or England or Japan or Australia or the US or wherever. So, and you're taking your son to do world schooling and have all these cool experiences. What does a typical day, like, I know that there's all these alternatives, right? But what's a typical day look like for you?
Well, thank you. Yes. So again, I'm a big believer in routines, habits, and rituals, right? When we really hold our feet to the fire and we believe that, success leaves clues, you just have to look at somebody's daily routine to figure out how they're probably showing up in their bank account, in their marriage, with their parenting, with their tithing, with their travel, and everything else. So it doesn't matter where I am on the planet. I get up at 4:30 every single morning. I hydrate with a glass of water with lemon. The reason I put lemon in is for alkalinity. We need to make our body as alkaline as we can. From there, I go into meditation. So I'll typically meditate in my meditation chair for 15 to 20 minutes. That could be a guided meditation. That could be a visual meditation. It could be something from Joe Dispenza, who I'm a big fan of, his meditations. And then from there, I'm into my workout. Now, what's great about my workout is it's body resistance, it's weights, it's a little bit of cardio, and it only lasts for about 20 to 30 minutes. So even before anyone else thinks of getting out of bed, I've already conditioned my mind, I've conditioned my body, and then I go attack the emails, right? I go start with some emails, knock some of those out, and then I'm into my coaching calls. And my coaching calls typically last roughly half a day. And then after that, it's either family time or it's beach time or we're out sightseeing or playing golf or something that we really love to do. And it wasn't always like that. And I know some of the listeners going, yeah, that might be easy for you. But I'm telling you that there's an absolute truth to writing the story to win. If you want to write your story such that you win and you start moving towards what I call the 5 freedoms, I have a core belief, Kyle, that anyone who's defiantly committed to doing it can do it. So with that said, does that answer your question? And perhaps should we go into the 5 freedoms that everybody craves?
Yeah, potentially. I do want to hit something that you touched on there, which I had the fortunate pleasure of learning this probably when I was like 21. And I've seen it firsthand from nearly every single high performer I've ever come across. They have this morning routine, right? And it works for them. And there's typically 5 to 6 steps to it. There's a spiritual component to it. There's a mental component to it. There's typically a writing or journal component to it, or a motivational, you're reading something, and then it's getting your body moving. So it's spirit, mind, and body, right? And every single high performer I've ever talked to has a ritual or a morning routine that is literally religion to them, right? If they hit those things, then they're most likely going to have a successful day, right?
1,000%. And the same thing is true for incorporating a gratitude practice, a forgiveness practice. You talk about journaling. So sometimes, between the meditation and the workout, We'll do some, watch TED Talks. We'll watch or listen to great podcasts. We'll do things that average people aren't willing to do because they want to listen to the news or they just want to play music, where that's okay, but that's not what high performers do. High performers use something called net time, NET, which is called no extra time, which is really using that time where everyone else is sleeping to really gain the competitive edge. And what happens with that is it compounds. Can you imagine what doing that every morning, 7 days a week, because I don't take off weekends or even holidays, getting up that early and doing that routine habit or ritual where after a week or two or, a month or 6 months, it all compounds and it just becomes an extension of who you are. Does that resonate?
100%. And I have some room for improvement because I hit my 5 days a week. So we've talked about that too. But you bring up another good point here. And this is about habits, right? I had this when I was first learning about personal development and growth. And, I'm a very high, don't tell me what to do. I don't want a structure. This is why I love to be an entrepreneur. I get to choose. But what I learned is that routine sets you free, right? The more structure you can have in a limited amount of time, the more time you have to go spend with your family, to go spend giving back or have recreational fun. So the importance, have you ever seen a high performer that you've coached that doesn't believe in habits?
Honestly, not a one. I think that, again, success leaves clues. And if there's one thing we know, that doing something over and over anchors it into the autonomic nervous system. So I think for every high performer I've coached, which are thousands, if not tens of thousands, they all really own that principle that you talk about.
Yes, I agree. All right. So transition the conversation a little bit, but kind of go in this, I want to dive deeper in something that I've personally been spending a lot of time thinking about. And that's how your faith intersects with business and leadership. And this is something we talk about a lot. Has your faith influenced your approach to entrepreneurship and how you've built your coaching platform?
1,000%. We know that, what, we're here on purpose and with purpose for a reason and a season, right? And so when you think about what gives us life, what allows our heart to beat, our lungs to take in oxygen, our eyes to see, our ears to hear, something gave us that. And it's a gift. And while we have this beautiful gift and we have something called dominion over, which is the fancy phrase for the power to choose, that's what God has given us, is this opportunity to use everything that we have internally, along with the power to think and behave differently than any other animal or bird or insect or fish, right? They all operate under instinct. We've been given this beautiful gift to choose. And so some people choose to go work a W-2 job, and that's okay if that's what they choose to do. Whereas other people choose to build companies and hire teams and have multiple streams of income. And that's really where you've got to really ask yourself, what prevents some people from going out there and trying to do a little bit more? Well, sometimes that's fear. And so you got to choose in this lifetime whether you're going to operate by fear or you're going to choose faith. Because for me, I trust that God has put me here at the right time for the right reason to help people. And really my whole, shtick around this is I'm here to learn, to live, to laugh, to love, to grow, and to help my fellow man and woman do the same. And that's kind of my motto. I'm here to learn, to live, to laugh, to love, to grow, and to help my fellow man or woman do the same. And so when I think about, having faith in doing that there's always another level, that there's an abundance of clients, there's an abundance of real estate deals, there's an abundance of travel available, it really reminds me that we can be, do, and have anything we want as long as we don't let fear guide us, but we choose faith and we let God open up door after door that we walk through. And I'm telling you, life doesn't get any better than just knowing that's available to us.
Yeah, I love how you articulate that. I want to see if you could tell me about a specific situation or moment in your life where there was a bit of fear or uncomfortable situations that you put yourself in, that you really had some resentment, or you didn't take the leap, or it took you a moment to take the leap to go from that corporate to the entrepreneurial journey. Or can you think of anything specifically where you had an uncomfortable situation or fear that you overcame?
Well, it's just like anything else. You were going to have fear. If you're a human being, you're going to have some doubt. You're going to have some fear. You're going to have some worry. You're going to have some anxiety. And you're going to think about, worst case scenarios instead of doing what high performers do, which is you're aware of what could happen, but you move forward in spite of it. And for me, I mean, many times, I mean, leaving corporate, I had a steady paycheck. I'd worked there for over 20 years. I had a company vehicle. I had tickets to the NHL hockey games. I had an expense account and I had a family to feed, right? So when you work for somewhere where you get a paycheck every couple of weeks, and then all of a sudden you decide to cut off from it, that's a big step because you don't know, what's going to happen on the other side. Same with buying a piece of real estate, right? And you buy it and you're nervous because you borrowed all this money from the bank or from credit unions or from other people. And then you wonder, am I going to be able to make this a profitable venture? Or even, traveling around the world. Sometimes, when I've got calls with high performers and I'm in Asia or I'm in Europe or I'm in North America, I've got to figure out, is my technology going to work? Am I going to figure out these time zones? But I'm telling you, there's a difference for me and the difference for high performers, Kyle, where you really understand that there's three types of people out there. There's people that are interested in success. There's people that are committed to success. And then there's the category we call defiantly committed to success. And the difference is as follows. The people that are interested will do some of the stuff if it's convenient and if it makes sense. The ones that are committed to it will do it because they've committed to themselves, they've committed to their family, they've committed to their friends, right? But the people over here are the ones that will absolutely do anything that they need to do because they know that God has given them an opportunity and that they don't waste opportunities. So if they go up the mountain, down the mountain, into the valley, back up the mountain, down the mountain, it's almost like a roller coaster where you go up, down, there's a loop-de-loop, you think you're going to fall out. If there's one thing they do is they keep their eye on the prize, they know their outcome, and they keep marching until they attain it. So looking back at me, even though I had some fear around that, I didn't focus on the fear. I focused on the outcome of what I wanted, why I wanted it, and who I needed to be to go after it. Does that resonate with you?
100%. It's the identity and the feeling tied to the outcomes, right? So like my big goals, whenever I have doubt or fear or anything, and you're realigned with where you're trying to go, it's like, well, this isn't going to be as painful as if I don't do it, right?
That's
and
right.
So reframing the mental frameworks around, what's possible if I do. And then it's what I realize is it's really like anything. Once you do it a couple times, it's like, this isn't that big of a deal getting up in front of a talking full of a room of angry people, being a punching bag or starting a podcast or doing any of these uncomfortable things.
Yeah. And what I love about you, and I'll give you huge credit, my friend, is you always get comfortable being uncomfortable, right? You're willing to go into some of the tougher conversations. You're willing to, negotiate tougher real estate deals. You're willing to get on an airplane and go to a conference because you know that there's something that is gold in there. You're going to meet someone or you're going to be introduced to an investor or something like that. And that's where I go back to these people are willing to do what other people aren't willing to do, because essentially they want to get back towards working towards the 5 freedoms. And the 5 freedoms is a framework that when you really think about what do we really want and what are we defiantly committed to, I've done enough coaching sessions and been on this planet long enough to understand that there's 5 things we all want to move towards. Should we unpack that for the listener?
Yeah, 100%.
All right. So for high performers, the number one thing that they typically want and come to me for is for financial freedom. They want to get this money thing handled. They want to absolutely have more money in the bank than less money in the bank so that they can give it to their family, to their friends. They can tithe it. They can travel the world, all of those things. And I'm a big believer, Kyle, that money means that if you make money, you must have had to add value to someone or something along the way, because money is a byproduct of adding value. So what I know is high performers don't just want one stream of income. They want 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or even more streams of income where they add value and money becomes the byproduct of that. And that helps them move towards their ultimate freedom goals. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it goes back to what we were saying, living is giving, right?
That's it.
Or giving is living, whichever way you want to put it.
They both work. And that takes us to number 2, because once you have financial freedom, you can buy back some of your time and move towards more time freedom. And time freedom in terms of doing what you want, when you want, with whom you want, why you want. And a lot of that could be for family reasons. It could be for sports. It could be for something that's near and dear to your heart as a hobby, right? But high performers, the ones that I coach and the ones that follow, you and that you're in the same circles of, they really do love the fact that financial freedom can also move them towards more time freedom.
100%. Nothing to add.
All right. That takes us to number 3, which is near and dear to my wife, Lisa, and my heart, which is geographical or location freedom, right? As you mentioned, we're often found traveling the world, and it's not because we have to, it's because we get to. What's better than going and seeing another country or meeting their culture or trying their food or understanding, what life is like for other people? Because I think it gives us more compassion. I think it gives us more empathy. I think it gives us more understanding. And it's something that we're committed to doing, multiple times a year. But what fuels it is the fact that financially and time-wise, we've created a life that allows us to do it. Are we fully where we want to be there yet? Absolutely not. Are we moving towards it in spades? Absolutely. Every year it gets better and better. So to recap, the financial freedom, the time freedom, and the location freedom are all in play. But before I go to the final 2, any thoughts on the third one there?
No, I love it. All I'll add is the listeners are getting a sneak peek on what a coaching session looks like with Coach T. It's just full of gold nuggets.
That's it. Well, thank you, Kyle. I appreciate that. So that takes us to number 4, which is my favorite one, which is impact freedom. Because once you've got some money, some time, and the ability to go anywhere, you can really pour your heart and soul into things that are near and dear to your heart. You can go on a mission trip. You can start a foundation. You can go out there and tithe. You can go out there and coach people, in other countries. You can do whatever you want. And that's something that, as my wife, Lisa, and I do more of, we love doing couples retreats. We love doing things with children. We love going out there and really adding value, to anyone who will, listen to us. And that brings us to number 5, which is a close, one to the other 4, which is relationship freedom. And that doesn't mean that, leave your loved ones or your friends or your community, but it also means that you get to go out there and see that there's a whole bunch of people in this big, beautiful world that perhaps you want to hang around more with. People that are into personal growth, people that are into faith-based learning, people that are into real estate, people that are entrepreneurial, right? And like I said, it doesn't mean that we shun others, but I'm telling you, a high tide lifts all boats. So when you work towards more financial freedom, time freedom, location freedom, impact freedom, and relationship freedom, and hang around with rock stars, life becomes so much more fun.
Yeah, I love it. And I think, what's so powerful about thinking about it like this is, when speaking from personal experience, it's like, hey, I want to make a bunch of money so I can, have things, right? And then you make a little money and you buy something and you realize that by the time you left the lot from that dealership, you don't feel any different, right? Or it's very shallow, right? And so you start learning a little bit more and you're able to, experience a little time freedom. And it's like, that's great. But now I love to work and I want to travel, and you travel. And then it's like, then you realize what really is the most fulfilling about it's centered around financial freedom is giving back and people, right? It's relationships run the world, right? And so the more relationships you create, the more impact you can create, to the more money you make, to the more trips you could take on, the better experiences you can give your family. And it's this compound effect that once you get it going, it really gets going. So I love that you share that to kind of give more feeling and meaning behind what freedom all entails. It's not just about money, right? Like that's pretty leading.
That's exactly it. And that's why we, really want people to write the story to win. So even if you're in a W-2 job right now, or you've got one stream of income, or, whatever your excuse is, this is where you can start to reinvent yourself by reading the books, listening to the podcasts, going to events, working with coaches, hanging around people like Kyle. I'm telling you, a high tide lifts all boats. And I've really come to the belief that, the number one law that governs this whole planet, Kyle, is called the law of expansion. It's life bringing us more life, more love, more children, more money, more travel, more experiences, right? And everything else is called contraction. So my job as a coach, and your job as a coach and a mentor and a podcaster, is to remind people that this is a big, beautiful world and we're really not here very long. So are you going to be interested in going and doing some of this? Are you going to be committed to it? Or are you going to choose to be defiantly committed and go after it?
Where does the law of attraction fall into the law of expansion? Or is it another word for it? Is it the same thing?
No, they're similar. They're like cousins. But the thing that I love about the law of expansion, again, more life bringing more life, or more love, or more money, or more abundance, or more passion, is really all about, your belief system, right? It's all about your intention. It's all about your vibration. It's all about your frequency. So let me unpack that a little bit more, because every single thing that we crave or want, we call an intention, right? That intention literally leads to us feeling that feeling as a vibration, because thoughts are vibrations. If that vibration in our brain and our body of something we want then becomes a frequency, it's almost like we send it out into the ether, into the air, up to God, up to spirit, up to source, to say, hey, I'd really love for this to happen, right? So the universe goes, okay, Kyle wants to start a podcast. Kyle wants to start a family. Kyle wants to buy a property. And then spirit literally starts to bring us the opportunity to do that. It doesn't bring the thing, Kyle. And I think that's where most people get caught up on the law of manifestation. But it brings opportunity that then if we go out there and we take intelligent and inspired action, we can start the podcast. We can find the love of our life. We can start a real estate company, because the intention, vibration, and frequency, all cranked up by amplitude, starts to really bring what's possible to the forefront. So does that sequence resonate with you?
Yeah, 100%. And I think it goes into, so it starts in the mind, right? Yep. And then it comes into action in your words. Like, talk a little bit about how powerful your words that you use on a daily basis are.
Well, I love that, Kyle, because your word is your wand. What you say out loud, or what you say to yourself internally, carries with it intention, vibration, and frequency. If you say, I can't do this, or that'll never happen for me, or I'm too old, I'm too young, I'm too educated, I'm not educated enough, whatever you say becomes a belief. And a belief is something that we, have a concept around being true for us, where you've got to ask, is it really true that it will never happen? Is it really true that you'll never have a second stream of income? Is it really true that you'll never find the love of your life? Is it really true? And we know that is just, the sign of somebody having more fear and thinking about what they, are missing, rather than somebody pouring into the belief that I am going to be an entrepreneur. I am going to be, great love for someone. I am going to travel and see this world. So again, you got the people that literally use negative language, and you get the people that use positive language. And it's almost like planting a seed in fertile soil, right? Yeah. When we plant that seed in fertile soil, it attracts the nutrients from the soil. It attracts the water from the clouds. It attracts the heat from the sun. And then a little root pops up, and then it can grow into, say, a beautiful oak tree, right? But people that use negative language, they plant that seed, and they're constantly digging up that seed saying, it'll never grow, it'll never grow, it'll never grow. That's ultimately their outcome. It never grows. But again, that's not what high performers do.
Yeah. And then just to fuel or put fuel on the fire of that, then you start sharing it, and you have multiple people, whether it's your spouse, your family, your team that you're building, right, to also believe in it, right? And then it's like this compounding of energy, right, where everybody's rowing in the same direction. And then that's where you see the Joe Fairlesses and the people that have scaled these massive companies, is they have a whole team of people that believe in the mission, right? And then they're all just exponential growth.
Oh, I love that, Kyle. And it's even more than that, because again, Tony's got this great quote where he says that people oftentimes overestimate what they can do in a year, but they underestimate what they can do in 2 or 3 or 5 years. And it's absolutely true.
Yeah. Why is that?
Because I think we become an impatient culture. I think we become a microwave society where, we always carry around these iPhones and Android phones in our pocket, and we can instantly get gratification by pushing a few buttons. Well, I'm telling you, as you move towards financial freedom, time freedom, location freedom, impact freedom, and relationship freedom, that doesn't happen overnight, right? There's something known as the law of time, also known as the law of gestation, that when you want something to happen, you've got to plant that seed. Just like, I'll give you a couple of examples. If a mama and a papa come together for a night of intimacy, right, because they want to have a child, I guarantee you it takes 9 months from when mama and papa get together until the baby's born. If you planted a carrot seed in fertile soil today, I can tell you that it's going to take roughly 40 to 60 days from the time you plant the seed until you've got a full-grown carrot that you can eat. So I don't want people to plant seeds and then come back the next day and go, where's my carrot or where's my baby? I want them to see that the universe has a pattern, has a pathway to prosperity. If you just plant the seeds and you trust and you hold faith rather than fear, amazing things can happen. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. So consistent effort over time, right? And I think that what I've seen in my life and people that, I've met with in my short career, you come across people with these big dreams or big ideas, and then you see them in 2 years and they're fat, overweight, haven't done anything with it. And it's because their why isn't right. It's like, oh, because I want to be a millionaire. And then you realize that so the why isn't strong enough.
That's right.
Have you seen that?
All the time. I mean, that's really where we talk about, what do you really want? But what's more important than what you want is why you want it. So let's go back to your example. Somebody wants to be a millionaire, right? And they really want it. And then they go towards it, but something happens that defeats them and they stop their pursuit of going after it. Versus somebody that's got a reason why they want to be a millionaire. Maybe they come from no money. Maybe the second reason is they want to take care of their family. Maybe the third reason is they said they never, ever want to work for someone else again and work a W-2. Maybe they have a dream to buy real estate. Maybe they have a dream to live internationally. Because the more levels of why that you have, Kyle, when times get tough or you hit the wall or somebody says no, you get up, you dust yourself off, and you go back to all the reasons why you wanted to be a millionaire in the first place, and you keep on keeping on. And that's the difference between high performers and average people. High performers know what do they want, why they want it, who they need to be to go after it. It's an identity play. And then it comes down to intelligent and inspired action. And I love the term intelligent and inspired action because intelligent means smart and inspired means, again, because they don't have to, they get to. So when you really think about it, you need a big why, you need a big purpose, and you really need to surround yourself with reminders of it. Maybe you need to put up a vision board. Maybe you need to record your goals on an audio, program and play it back on your smartphone. Maybe you got to sit down with your spouse and say, honey, what do we want over the course of the next year, the next 3, the next 5, the next 10, 20 years? And it might be a little bit uncomfortable because you're not sure how it's going to happen. But I'm telling you, where there's a strong enough what and there's a strong enough why, the how starts to present itself. It's an amazing thing.
Or maybe you need to invest in coaching with Mr. Trevor McGregor so he can keep you in line and whip you back into shape when you're having a pity party after an employee left or whatever. I think that I was having a conversation this morning with a future business owner and hit her straight. And it was, hey, this isn't easy, right? This game that if you want to be a business owner and you want to be successful, like it isn't easy. So if you're looking outside, looking in, it's like, oh, you have these things and do this. And you have to be able to deal with all the suck and the hard decisions and the payroll and the overhead and people leaving and, deals not working and partnerships being tough. And the list goes on, right? But if you're committed, then you can get through the suck, right? If you bring people around you that believe in you, right? When you've had a bad day or, things get tough, to say, hey, this is part of it, right? And you get up and then you get back in your routine, you get back in scripture or whatever it is that gets you going. And you realize that, hey, this is a one day at a time. I'm trying to win one day. And that's today.
That's right. That's so good, Kyle. I love that you said that because oftentimes, simplicity is the path to mastery. And that is where people make things so complex and they've got so much to do and they say they have so little time, right? I'm telling you, business is really one on 5 things. It's one on getting rid of your limiting beliefs and choosing faith over fear. Number 2, it's setting really cool goals for things that you really want. What do you want in the next year? We call that the short term. What do you want in the long term? That might be the next 5 to 10 years. Or what do you want for the vision for your business and your life? So if we can get rid of your limiting beliefs and we can create a vision and some goals, that's step 2. The third thing is like you always talk about, which is, surrounding yourself with people and systems and processes and realizing that, if we rinse and repeat those on a daily basis, we're absolutely going to move closer to where we want to be. Step 4 is getting rid of any time management excuse. I hear it all the time. I don't have enough time. I wish there were 8 days in a week. But you don't understand, Coach T. All relevant, but all irrelevant in my book, because we all live by the rule of 168. And that rule means that we all have 168 hours to work with. I've got them. You've got them. Richard Branson's got them. Tony Robbins has them, right? Now we sleep for some of those hours. We eat, we pay the bills, we play with the kids. But really, what are you doing to move towards the 5 freedoms? So if we've got getting rid of limiting beliefs, creating goals, creating systems for support, and having the right people to delegate to, we optimize our calendar for time management. The 5th one is my favorite, because that is execution and staying accountable to what it is that you want. Because if we do all those things, but we don't execute, we can't get you closer to where you want to be. And I've always said that if you've got a coach, a teacher, a mentor, a business partner, an accountability partner, somebody holding your feet to the fire and making you stay accountable to it, that's when sparks fly and magic happens. Because day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, you can do a lot over the course of a week, or over the course of 2 weeks, or over the course of a month, or a quarter, or a half year, or a year. And that's why we always say that, Rome wasn't built in a day, but if you want to build Rome, the best time to start is right now.
Yeah, and accountability partners are huge. And for me, it's like similar to my personal trainer, right? Like similar to you. If I pay for something, I'm going to show up a little bit different. That's just me personally, so encourage anyone listening to rewind this 2 minutes and listen to that again, because that's the playbook, right? It's easy. It's easy as that. 5 steps. So Trevor, moving forward, this show is called Legacy Builders for a reason. If you look up legacy in the Webster's dictionary, it has a pretty canned definition. But how do you define legacy?
Oh, such a great question as well. You've really got some good ones. Legacy is really, what are you really doing with that dash between the year you're born and the year that you expire and go meet God? And that is really what are people going to remember you for? And they're not going to remember you for the money. They're not going to remember you for, exactly all the things that you think. They're going to remember you for who you were, instrumental in their journey. Were, creative? Were you thoughtful? Were you kind? Because it goes back to, people won't always remember what you say, but they will remember how you made them feel. So as a coach, as a landlord, as a husband, as a father, I really believe my legacy is to leave people better off after I've had a conversation with them than before that conversation started, and hope that they take that and share it with other people. Right? Because I'm one of those guys that says, if you hear a quote come out of my mouth, or you hear a framework, or you hear something that I teach as a coach, use it for yourself, but give it away. So in terms of the legacy, I know, kind of like Tony Robbins, that the more people we talk to and the more people we help, the more that, we're going to leave our legacy as we get ready to leave this planet. But does that land with you?
Yeah, 100%. It sure does. And I mean, you're definitely living out a legacy. Super grateful and thankful for the time that we get to spend together on a regular basis. And thank you again for joining us. This has been, a masterclass in leadership, mindset, and building a lasting legacy. So again, can't thank you enough for being here today and sharing your journey.
Well, thank you, Kyle. And again, I want to extend huge props to you, because it's not easy, to be a business owner, a real estate investor, a husband, a father, and then I'm going to start a podcast. But I'm telling you that this is where people need to come back to time and time again, because repetition is the mother of skill. So if you're not interested, you're not committed, you're defiantly committed to a better life and a better business, listen to Kyle on every episode and watch the magic that unfolds.
Thanks for that plug. And to everyone listening, remember, go out and build your legacy brick by brick, day by day. And we'll see you next time on the Legacy Builders. Thank you.